So I have a really gross story for you guys today that highlights the state of lawlessness in the United States. So I have an article from The Hill. The title is former Sheriff David Clark to receive $100,000 yearly pension. Okay, so to give you guys some quick background on the story for people who don't know, Sheriff David Clark is a Milwaukee sheriff. He runs a county jail in Milwaukee. He's a loudmouth, like ignorant ass, arrogant conservative who in recent years he's been on basically every network anytime there's an issue with police in the United States, whether it's them abusing their power or if it's another innocent unarmed black person being shot and killed, or just really a lot of issues that revolve around law enforcement. And some other issues too. So he would go on and do the right wing conservative talking points, make absolutely no sense, blame Black Lives Matter for police violence, blame black people for police violence. The police are, in his mind, 100% correct. They've never done anything wrong. Every time they've shot an unarmed black person on camera, in front of witnesses, completely unprovoked, it was all justified, and nobody should ever say anything about it. Nobody should ever criticize the cops, and nobody should ever rightfully call them out for the shitty things that they do sometimes. And of course, I'm not talking about all police officers, but I'm talking about a good chunk, a decent amount of police officers who routinely are caught up in troubles with the between themselves and the communities they're supposed to be policing. So yeah, that's that. And he of course is a right wing propaganda machine. That's why Republicans love him so much, and that's why he rose to a national level, I guess you could say. But one thing people don't talk about when they have him on their shows, and when they're asking him to give speeches and for commentary and shit like that, one thing they don't bring up is how shitty he is at his job of being a sheriff. So he, in his jail at the county, it's like a regular county jail. You take in people who've been arrested, process them, you hold them for their court dates and shit like that. He's been accused multiple times, him and his officers have been accused multiple times of civil rights violations in his prisons, human rights violations. There was even there were multiple cases of people dying in his prisons from mistreatment and abuse. So, and there've been investigations into it, official complaints filed, shit like that. So that's the background, and a little bit more into some of the cases that made major national, not major, but made national headlines. One time there was a woman in his jail, and he denied her medical attention. She was pregnant, 9 months pregnant. He denied her medical attention while she was in his custody, and she ended up giving birth in her jail cell with no medical attention. The baby did not make it. The baby died, and the woman lost her child while she was sitting in jail, probably for some petty ass crime, and because the guards and the officials of the prison chose to ignore her rather than take her seriously and her complaint seriously and get her medical attention. They chose to ignore her, and then her baby died in the jail cell. There was another man who was choked out on camera. I think in one of his in his jails. Well, I think the guards were trying to wrestle him over some shit, and they started fighting, and they threw him on the ground. And of course, they were being overly aggressive, and they ended up choking his ass out on camera. And I think he died. I'm pretty sure that was one of David Clarke's jails, one of the stories from his jails. And then there was another story of somebody in his jail again. They were in their jail cell. They had problems with the inmate a couple times. I think he might have had mental issues. I'm not 100% sure about that. And he was in jail for a couple of days, and they denied him water while he was there. They denied him water. He asked for water. They wouldn't give him water. They cut off the water to his jail cell, so he couldn't even get water through the pipes. And they left him like that for hours. I think it was for days. And he died of dehydration. He literally died of dehydration in a jail in the United States of America in the 21st century. So, just unspeakable, ridiculous, absurd, unjustifiable human rights violations going on in his prisons or in his jail. And that's who David Clarke is. That's who he is. And the whole time he comes out and tries to shit on black protesters and black activists and calling the whole black community thugs and criminals and shit like that. While he's doing shit like this. While he's being a fucking thug, while he's being a criminal. But anyway, let me get into the article, because you remember the headline, right? He's getting $100,000 annually in his pension. So let's get into that shit, because that makes absolutely no sense. So the article says, former Milwaukee County Sheriff David Clarke Jr. is set to receive more than $100,000 each year in pension payments, according to Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. The paper reviewed pension records for Clarke, who retired as the county sheriff in August 2017 after 15 years on the job. He will now receive retirement benefits totaling $100,830 from both the city and county of Milwaukee, the records show. The yearly total comes from $5,706.91 monthly check from the city pension system and a $2,695.64 monthly payment from the county where he served in the Milwaukee county, where he served in the Milwaukee Police Department for nearly 2 decades before becoming a sheriff. Before his abrupt resignation halfway through his second 4-year term as sheriff, Clarke earned an annual salary of $132,290 a year, according to the Journal-Sentinel. Clarke, a vocal Trump ally, also netted another $220,172 in fees, expenses, and gifts related to his political engagements in 2016. The former sheriff made headlines this week with several controversial tweets attacking the media. Twitter said these tweets violated users' agreements. Twitter put Clarke's account on read-only mode until he deleted the messages, one of which suggested punching the media and making them, quote, taste their own blood, end quote. Okay. So the article, it's crazy how they completely left out all the other information that I gave to you guys, the background information I gave to you guys before I read the article. None of that is in it at all. This is what I'm talking about. They never mention all the shitty things in his backgrounds, all the criminal investigations into him in his jails and the employees at his jails and how they conduct business at the jails. None of that shit is mentioned at all. What they did say was they mentioned his abrupt resignation in the middle of his term, as his 4-year term as sheriff of the county. Yeah, you know why he abruptly resigned? Because he was under criminal investigation. He was under multiple criminal investigations for manslaughter, for having people die in his fucking prison, from dying in his jail, from easily avoidable situations, shit that didn't have to happen. That woman's child did not have to die. That man did not have to die from dehydration in a fucking jail. So that's why he abruptly resigned. I think that's important to note in the article while you're explaining how he's getting $100,000 a year from taxpayers. He had to resign because taxpayers, the people who he is accountable to, the people who he's supposed to be working for, the taxpayers of Milwaukee, they were fucking outraged. They were livid that the person who they trust to run their jails, that's the jail, that's an important part of the community. Obviously, you can't have a county without a jail, or you can't have run a state without jails. So the taxpayers, they put their faith in this man to operate the jails and these institutions, and to have the police officers work under him, have it all operate in a smooth, legal, and respectful way that doesn't violate the rights of citizens. That's what they're giving him the job for. That's what they expect him to do. And he turns around and has people dying in his prisons because he's fucking petty, and because his guards and his officers don't give a fuck about human life. They don't give a fuck about people. You're arrested. Oh, you must be a bad person. You're a shitty person. So I'm going to deny you water till you fucking die. That's what he turned around and did with their trust. That's why he had to go, because he was under so much heat, because he was under so much fucking pressure that the people in the county were like, there's no way we could keep this shit going for the rest of his term. We can't keep covering for him in all these investigations, these manslaughter investigations, and this person's supposed to be the one running the jail, who's supposed to be in charge of the fucking criminals in the county. We can't have that, because that just makes us look fucking lawless, because they were. And so there was the county's response is, okay, so let's sweep this whole shit under the rug and give him $100,000 in taxpayer money. $100,000. The taxpayers just said they don't want this man. They do not want this man. He violated their trust. He abused his power. The taxpayers don't want anything to do with him. In fact, they want him investigated, and they want his ass in jail and in prison. That's what the taxpayers want. But the people at the county said, okay, this is kind of starting to look bad for us. I don't want to make a whole big scene, have a trial of our former sheriff, and get all these national headlines and this press attention. We don't want all this shit. And honestly, part of the governor and some of the other people in the state they probably excused this shit, and they knew about it and condoned this shit too, and kept it under the rug the whole time he was a police in the police department and a sheriff and all that shit. So there's a good chance that they all knew about it and ignored it this whole time. So that's part of the reason why they want to sweep this shit under the rug. So they give him, allow him to retire with dignity, which he shouldn't be able to do, and then give him 100. Not only did they just give him a pass and say, okay, we're going to let you go, we're not going to hold this against you, we're not going to, we know you did some, you're honestly probably guilty of manslaughter, and we should arrest your ass right now and have a fucking trial. That's what they should do. They know that, and they said, okay, so what we're really going to do is just let you leave quietly. You know, you still have your respect. You can still go on these national TV stations and do your propaganda, write your books, and you give your speeches and do all your fucking right-wing propaganda. We'll let you do all that shit. And then on top of that, we'll give you $100,000 just so you're comfortable, just so you're okay. What about the people who lost their lives in that jail? What about their families? The families of people who lost their lives in the jail. You don't think they could use that $100,000? But no. It's because he's the establishment. Sheriff David Clark, he's a law enforcement official. He's one of the top law enforcement officials of the state. He's part of the establishment. So we can't touch him. We're not going to arrest him for manslaughter. Are you kidding me? No, we're going to let him retire, and then we'll give him $100,000 annual pension. That's what we're gonna do. Like, that's so fucking gross. That is so fucking gross. And if it was anybody else, with documented cases of manslaughter, cases where it's undeniable that somebody caused the death of another person, you think the Milwaukee County Police Department or the state police, they will just look the other way and be like, fuck you, he's a good person, I'm gonna just look the other way. I'm not gonna ruin his life over this shit. Are you kidding me? No, your ass would be anybody in Milwaukee, their ass would be locked up. So it's just gross, and it highlights the bias in our system. But anyway, so another reason why this is so relevant and important, because like the article mentioned, he was a part of Donald Trump's campaign. He's buddy with Donald Trump and other Republicans, like other Republicans in Congress and shit like that. He's buddy with them. They like him. They like the shit that he says. They like the shit that he does. They get along. During the campaign, Donald Trump, he would have Sheriff David Clark and other police officers, right-wing police officers and officials, law enforcement officials, come out and give speeches with him on the campaign trail, talking about, oh yeah, Donald Trump talking about, yeah, I'm the law and order candidate. We're going to bring back law and order. We're going to bring back law and order to the country. We're all these Black Lives Matter protests in the streets. We're going to, enough of it, enough. We're bringing back law and order. So he would go out and do all this shit talking about law and order. We're going to crack down on marijuana, which he's doing as president. We're going to crack down on these violent activists. They're not violent, but again, he wants to portray them as criminals. And then, so that's classic right-wing tactic, to portray your enemy as criminal and all that shit, and then pretend like you are the sole defender of truth and justice and law and order, and we're going to crack down all these thugs and criminals. That's the classic right-wing tactic. And the fucking irony about all of it is, they're the most lawless people in the country. They're the most fucking lawless. I just gave you Sheriff David Clark's rap sheet. I just gave you all the shit, a couple of the things that he's been accused of, well-documented cases where there are investigations, official investigations into internal investigations into what happened. So it's obviously something did happen. So you have lawless ass people like David Clark join your posse and go around giving speeches with you, talking about how they're going to bring back law and order. Are you fucking kidding me? Donald Trump himself, law and order. Donald Trump is the most criminal person, one of the most criminal people to ever run for the presidency. And that's being dead honest, flat out. We can get into his financial crimes, which he's being investigated for right now by the FBI. He's under multiple investigations for financial crimes, money laundering, bribery, extortion, shit like that, tax evasion. He's under multiple felony criminal investigations by the FBI right now as we speak. And he was under multiple investigations while he was running for president, right? So you have that aspect to it. Both of them are fucking criminals going around the country talking about how they're going to bring back law and order and how they're going to be the ones to bring back order to the country. Are you fucking kidding me? Both of you should be in jail. What the fuck are you talking about? And then on top of that, while he was campaigning, Donald Trump was campaigning on doing very illegal shit. He was campaigning on breaking laws, international laws, breaking committing war crimes. That's what he was running on. He multiple times when he was running on the campaign trail, he was talking about how Bush shouldn't have left Iraq without taking the oil. We should have took the oil. What are you guys thinking about? What, we just invaded the country for no reason. We're going to just leave without taking the oil. So he was talking about how Bush should have taken the oil. And then he was talking about, if I go into Iraq, if I go into any of these countries, we're not just gonna leave empty-handed. We're gonna go in there, we're gonna take something, we're gonna take the oil. Okay, understand something. That's a fucking war crime. That is illegal under international law. If anybody does that, if any world leader does that, any president of any country, any dictator does that shit, it is considered a war crime, an international a crime. There will be an investigation. They would be prosecuted, and go to prison. That's how that works. That's how it works. That's how it's supposed to work. So. And that was one of the most mind-blowing things about Donald Trump's campaign, that he would just go out and say shit that was a campaign on doing shit that would be illegal. He would just come out and just say that shit. I'm going to do this brazenly illegal thing, and I'm not going to give a fuck about the law, and I don't give a fuck who has anything to say about it, because I'm above the law. That's basically what he was saying every time he would come out and say it on the campaign trail. He said it in debates, he said it in speeches, he said it in interviews, he said this shit multiple times. And another thing he would say was that he wanted to kill the families of ISIS. He wanted to, in his mind, his logic was, ISIS, they're suicide bombers. They don't care about their own lives. They are actively, they will kill themselves for their cause, and they will do it with joy, and they wouldn't regret a damn thing about it. That's how Donald Trump view jihadists and ISIS members. Okay, that's partially true. But when he takes this next leap is when he starts getting into criminal territory. He said on Fox and Friends, on live TV, on nationally televised TV, Fox News, viewed by millions of people, he said, I'm going to bomb the families of ISIS. I'm going to kill their families because they don't care about their lives. They're suicide bombers. They'll kill themselves. They don't care about their lives, but they care about their family lives. So I'm going to kill their families. He said this. He literally said this, and I'll show you the clip. As a matter of fact, I'll just run the clip right now.
I would knock the hell out of. I like to do one thing at a time. I would knock the hell out of ISIS. Okay. I would hit them, Brian, so hard like they've never been hit before. What about civilian casualties? What about the fact that we're targeting them and people are very concerned about collateral damage? I would do my best, absolute best, but we're fighting a very politically correct war.
Yeah. Well, we see that
the other thing is with the terrorists, you have to take out their families. When you get these terrorists, you have to take out their families. They care about their lives. Don't kid yourself. But they say they don't care about their lives. You have to take out their...
So you saw it in the clip. He says he's going to kill their families, right? He wants to kill their families. He wants to murder the families of ISIS. That is illegal. Under international laws, if under the rules of engagement, under multiple treaties that every country in the world, including the United States, has signed on to, including the Geneva Conventions and the Nuremberg tribunals for the Nazi soldiers. We all agreed, the entire world agreed, that you do not target civilians in a war. You do not go after women and children and the elderly and people who aren't fighting and people who cannot defend themselves. That is illegal. That is illegal. Or else we go back to a situation like we had in World War II with massive numbers of civilian casualties, where people were just bombing entire cities in Britain and Japan and destroying entire cities, and then you have the Nazis who are just rounding up civilians and doing a genocide and slaughtering innocent people. That's why we have that's why every fucking country in the world agrees we do not target civilians, and if you do, it is considered a war crime, and you'll be prosecuted and you will go to prison. But Donald Trump, the law and order candidate, him and fucking David Clark, they were going around talking about how they're going to kill the families of ISIS, how they're going to commit another fucking war crime on TV. He said it in debates. He said it in interviews. So. And everybody in the country was just watching. Nobody in the media had anything. They didn't have shit to say about it. But whenever he tweets some crazy shit, whenever he's talking about Mika Brzezinski's facelift on Morning Joe, or whenever he's talking about a senator, whenever he's calling Chuck Schumer names, whenever he's doing all that shit, the fucking outrage, the pearl clutching. Oh my God! Did Donald Trump just call Kim Jong-un Rocket Man? Did he just do that? And they didn't have shit to say when he was on TV talking about committing war crimes. So this is who Donald Trump associates with. He was actively thinking for months, actively trying to give David Clark a role in his administration. There were articles talking about how they were in the White House considering making him the Secretary of Homeland Security. A fucking cabinet secretary. This man who's guilty of manslaughter, documented cases of manslaughter, human rights violations, civil rights violations. The Trump administration was thinking about making him the Secretary of Homeland Security. One of the top law enforcement officers in the country. Are you fucking kidding me? So, they're all lawless. None of them give a fuck about the law. But whenever it comes to you and the law, whenever it comes to regular people in the law, that's when they want to enforce that shit. That's when they really want to enforce that shit. If you get caught stealing from a store, Donald Trump, what would he do? He would put him in jail. Fuck it, I don't care. He's a criminal. He's a shitty person. They're bad. They're thugs. Put him in jail. You get caught smoking weed. You get caught with on drug possession. And Donald Trump says yes. Put him in jail. Arrest him. Put him in prison because they had possession of marijuana. Yes, or any number of relatively petty crimes, they would throw a fit at this person's a criminal, this person's a thug, he should be in fucking jail. But when it's them, when it's committing war crimes and international crimes and human rights violations on a massive scale, being the biggest fucking criminals you could imagine, for them it's fine. When they're money laundering and doing tax evasion and tax fraud and shit like that, for them it's fine. They're not bad people. They're not lawless. They're not criminals. They shouldn't be in prison. Of course not. So that's just, this whole story blew my fucking mind and it got me worked the fuck up. And just this is just the state of the United States of America. The president can do whatever he wants. George Bush could invade Iraq illegally, even though everybody literally almost every other country in the world told him not to. The UN said not to, said it would be illegal to do so. He did it anyway. There was no repercussions for it. But Obama didn't prosecute him or anybody in his administration for it. You could do torture. Bush had a whole fucking torture network set up around the world. Nobody said anything about it. Nobody prosecuted him. His ass is still on vacation somewhere. Nobody's thinking about putting his ass on trial for the world to see, like they did for the Nazi war criminals or any other war criminals in the world who get who aren't the United States and don't have massive amount of wealth and power and connection. Those people get prosecuted, but not our war criminals. Those war criminals are off limits. Those are the good guys by definition. So it's just so fucking gross and it's just gross. It's just gross, and that's the United States system. That's the system we're living in.